everyone. Welcome to Single and Married with Ezzy. I am so excited to have you today. My name is Ezzy Odimuko. I'm a mom, a pastor's wife, and I enjoy talking about relationships. I have authored 2 books. The first, Relationship Smart, Love, Courtship, and Marriage for Every Woman. It is a great book for singles and for newlyweds. It talks about choosing right, problem solving, and how to identify toxic behavior in a relationship. My second book is Brighter Days, 100 Thoughts of Hope, Love, and Blessings. It is a devotional book. It will help you to love the Word and get in the habit of studying the Word. So thanks again for joining me today. Today is my 100th episode of Single and Married, and I am so excited because I have with me today my husband, Dike. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
Excited to be here today. 100 episodes.
That's right.
Wow. I still remember the very first episode you did in the gazebo.
That's right, in the backyard, and
with your cell phone.
With my cell phone.
And in case you're looking for that, it's on at Ezzy Odimuko. All the videos are there, right from the very first one to the 100th one. God has really been good.
He has been good. He has been good.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So what are we doing today?
I'm excited to have you here. I just want to talk with you.
Okay.
And share our story.
Okay.
Right? How we met, our journey into marriage.
Yeah.
How we started in marriage.
Yeah.
Some of the challenges we faced.
Yeah.
How we overcame. We want to be able to share our story so that others can be encouraged.
Yeah.
And know that they too, they can make it.
Yeah. I
right?
Agree. I agree.
So I remember how we met. Do you remember?
I do. That was in a town called Owerri in Nigeria.
That's right.
And I remember that day I had gone to church, and our church was planting another church in the city. And hanging around at church that day, I was a young man, and our pastor said to me, could you go to the church plant? They want to start a youth choir. I was the youth choir director in our church then. And so the pastor asked me to go down to this other church to help them set up their youth choir. So I agreed, and remember getting there. I wanted to go early so I could scope out the area, where we'll set up the keyboard, the sound system and all that. And got there very early. Didn't think I would see anyone there, but I saw you, and you were also the youth choir director.
I was also the youth choir. Don't tell me, don't ask me how I did that, because anyone who knows me knows that, right?
You sing with grace.
With grace. Extra grace, right?
Yeah.
So then I was the youth choir then,
yeah, you
right?
were.
So I was also there.
But then I didn't know, but I just saw this nice lady setting up the chairs, and we got conversing, and you told me who you were, and I introduced myself. And so that was the first time we met. But I guess I was too young then, or I wasn't thinking about marriage. So we didn't hit off anything at that point. I think we started talking,
in campus.
Seriously, when we were in university.
That's right.
And you came in when I was in my 3rd year.
That's right.
But I didn't develop anything serious with you until toward the end. In fact, I think I had graduated.
That's right. Just when you guys were graduating.
I really got serious with you. Mm-hmm. That's how shy I was, right? I wasn't really, when it came to the opposite sex, I wasn't very expressive. And, there might be some guys out there, and, you feel you can't talk to girls. Listen, if I could, you can. right? And, I remember the first day I visited you at your dad's house, and you made yam and scrambled eggs with onions and tomatoes. I'll never forget that. That's my best meal. And please, she's the only one that can cook that for me. Please don't get us in trouble right now. All right. And, and that was the day, I must say, that was the day I was convinced that you also loved me. You hadn't said it, but I felt convinced because the effort you put in to make that meal, it spoke to me, right? And there might be some girls, how can I signal him I like him? Someone said that the stomach is the best way to the heart of a man, right? But, I had already settled the fact that she was the one I wanted to marry. But something was going on with you. And you had this encounter with God. Well, why not tell them what happened?
Yes, but before I jump into that, I was just going to say, because you mentioned something, you said you were shy, right?
Yeah, very shy.
For the ladies, I always say it doesn't matter how shy that person is. They will have to express what they are looking for, right? So don't make excuses for them, because there's one thing I've learned, just from doing this for many years and interacting with people as well. When a man has not said anything, they really haven't said anything. So for a lot of young women, they try to make up for it. Oh, I think he loves me because I'm holding the spare keys to his house. I think he loves me because he introduced me to a bunch of people. So even though you were really shy, you still made the effort, right? To come to my house, to come visit me, and made all that effort to even express what it was that you needed, right? So don't make excuses. All right. The person does need to be able to, express themselves and express what it is that they are needing. But let's talk a little bit about being single. Right? And being single, you're in campus, you have lots of friends and lots of people hanging around you. And I want to talk about this, especially because you may be watching, and I believe there are lots of single people watching, right? And sometimes you will have people around you. It could be friends, could just be people, right, that are around you. They are not saying anything about marriage. You're just having them there. So for me, I had a number of friends, about 3 friends like that. One was really close and, I felt, oh, you know what? He's a believer. He's a Christian. Maybe we're going to get married. And there was another one too. The mom was a Christian and, I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to get married, and I remember being in campus fellowship. One of the days, right?
Student Christian Movement.
Federal That's right.
University of Technology.
That is right.
That's the university to go to.
Right. And I remember very clearly being in fellowship and just, praying and worshiping and God speaking to me. And saying to me, tell all the people in your life to go. I'm like, God, but I started to make excuses. I'm like, well, this other brother, he hasn't done anything. He's good. He's a Christian. I started to make excuses. And God said, well, you're praying. You're asking me to tell you who your future husband is going to be. So tell all the people in your life to go. So after making excuses, eventually I obeyed and I answered, I did what God wanted me to do. And believe it or not, after I obeyed, that was when you now came. That was when you showed up. Right.
And she makes a very important point. You see, a lot of times we hang on to people based on our own thoughts, what we think about them, and we think they're the best fit for us. But guess what? God, when we pray to God, God has your best interests at heart.
That's right.
And He will give you the best partner ever. You see, I believe it was John Beverly that said, there's nothing good for you outside the will of
That's
God.
right.
And so when you start praying for a spouse, be open-minded, right? Don't say it's John
right.
or I die, right? God may have something better. God knows the heart of every man. God knows the heart of every woman. And it was the same experience with me because God called me into the ministry in Christmas Day 1992. But I ran from God for 10 years. But I knew that eventually God was going to catch up with me. And so, and I remember one of my pastors back then, he had said something. He said, if you make a mistake in your career, you could change it. It may take you some time. It will take you a while, but you can change it. But if you make a mistake in marriage as a Christian, you're finished.
Yeah.
You can't kill the woman. You can't kill the man. You can't get rid of them. And so that stuck with me. And so I came to the point where I realized I knew my calling. I knew God had called me to be a minister. And that meant that 99% of the Christian ladies in our fellowship were out of the question. It wasn't going to work. And this is something that is also important for you. Single people, know your calling before you choose your wife.
That's right.
Because you see, if you choose your wife first, and then you now try to introduce your calling to her, whatever your calling may be. You may be called to be a minister, called to be a doctor, an engineer, a teacher, whatever it may be, right? And then you try to now pivot after you marry. Here's the truth about whatever God has called you to do. It will cost you. Now, if you start telling your spouse after the fact, after you're married, she may feel you are taking advantage of her or you're not stable. In fact, one of the first things I did right after I proposed to you, I managed to propose to you.
That's right.
The next
but
thing
you
I
still
told
did.
you, what was the next thing I told you?
That you were going to be a minister, like full-time?
Right. And I told her I was going to quit engineering in one day and be a full-time minister. And so when that day came, eventually, after we were married, it wasn't a shock to her.
That's
and
right.
she had prepared her heart. And now, here's the kicker. When you were young, you also prayed that you would marry a pastor. Tell us about that.
That is so funny, but it is true, right?
Tell us about that.
And so I remember growing up, we had, pastors come from time to time.
Yeah.
And so one time we had this pastor. He was very educated and, just expressed himself really well and taught the word. I'm like, that is the kind of person I would like to marry. Right? Yeah. So, you never stop wishing and dreaming because you never know what God is going to do.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And so, I didn't know all this till many years after we were married.
That's right.
So I re-emphasized the point I made. There is nothing good for you outside God's will. God's will is the best.
That's right.
Right.
And just to add to that as well, because in the garden, going back, in the Bible, you find that God actually gave Adam a task before he brought Eve, right? So knowing what God has called you to will help you, choose the right partner to go with you on that journey. It's not something anybody, just anyone can do with you, right? So that was just a little bit, just to encourage the singles out there. Another thing I wanted to say was when we got engaged and we, started off, we were literally you were just out of school.
Yeah.
You had nothing.
Yeah.
Right? I was still in school because I find that these days people are looking for people who are already made.
Yeah.
Who have it all. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And, you can't be looking for those who are already made. You have to trust. You're looking for the qualities, the character, and for those godly qualities. And you want to come in and then both of you can begin to build together. Because I feel that is one thing.
They could be ready-made, but they have to have those good qualities.
Exactly.
Right? Things like the fear of the Lord, diligence, hardworking,
honesty, things like that.
Yeah. So you see, don't go by, is he loaded or not? if he's loaded and he has a
character,
bad character, right? You're finished, right? So whether he has money or not is not really so much the issue. I was more broke than a broker, right? I tell you. But you see, if that man, if that woman is diligent, they will stand before great men.
That's right.
And not mean
That's
people, right? They will become great,
Yeah.
right? Now, time is flying. So we got to talk about something
That's
else.
right.
We got to remember our married people. Our married people are shout out to you. But before that, you have some gifts to give away.
I do have some gifts. I talked to you about my books. So my 2 books. I will be giving away soft copies of my Relationship Smart. And I will be giving away hard copies of Brighter Days. In order for you to qualify to get this, because I'll put everyone who subscribes, everybody who leaves a comment into a pool, and we're going to pick and we're going to give out gifts. Okay. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you like it, and drop your comment in there. And even your questions. So in the upcoming episodes, we'll try to pick a couple questions here and there to answer. Yeah. Right? So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. But if you wanna get in the pool for a gift, definitely subscribe, definitely like, and put a comment in there.
Yeah, so you gotta put a comment, you gotta be subscribed, and you gotta like.
That's
and
right.
We're gonna choose some people at random, and we're gonna send out a gift to you. And like she said, we know we can't cover everything today. It's just not possible. But so make sure you put questions in the chat. The next episode, I'm inviting myself.
Oh, okay.
The next
happy
episode,
to have you anytime.
I'll be here, and we'll
Take
answer
more questions. Okay.
The questions we get in the chat.
That's right.
Today and this week.
Yes.
I guess we can answer them in the next episode.
The next episode.
So next episode will be question answering sessions.
Yes. So put your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always love to have him because he has a ton of wisdom and knowledge from God.
You too.
And it's always good to have you. So let's talk about marriage, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So we married now 22 years.
22 years.
But it's all been by God's grace.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about some of the things that helped us. You know, at the beginning, some people, I know not everybody, some people face challenges.
Yeah.
A lot of people do face challenges, and like we did. And some of those challenges is not because we didn't love each other, because we did.
Yeah.
But those challenges are just part of what happens when 2 different people are coming together.
Yeah.
So talk to me about challenges. Are they always a negative thing, or how can people use conflict and, bring out the best in themselves?
Well, yes and no. Because sometimes some of the things that create challenges and problems in the marriage are inherent in us, right? For example, one of the challenges I had was I had a quick temper. I got angry easily, right? And that rubbed off terribly on my wife. And my wife is a more calm person, reserved, and it really shook her, right? Discovering that I had this anger issue. That was one.
Yeah.
So this is where, character came in, right? And but this went on for a while. And it got to a place where, being a pastor, sometimes I'll get angry with her, and feeling that she was limiting my ministry. And I remember one day I went to God and started praying, God, this woman is limiting my ministry. Change her. And God asked me the question, you can't change yourself. Why are you trying to change your wife? Start with yourself. And the Lord reminded me of that scripture where it says, before you remove the speck from your brother's eye, remove the plank from your eye. And I remember going to God. I wish I had time. There were so many things that caused conflict, but I know on my part, one of it was anger. And the Lord had to tell me, you know what, you got to deal with this, and you got to come to me for grace to overcome this. And I remember I began to pray and say, God, I know I'm an angry young man. Please change me. Give me grace. I can't overcome this problem on my own. Help me by your Holy Spirit in me. Now, it didn't take overnight, but eventually I began to notice those things that made me lose my temper weren't making me lose my temper anymore. But not just that. I also began to notice that as I began to change, you too.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So just on that, talking about some of those things that happen that create conflict, right? Yeah. When people come together. And I tell people, marriage is like a classroom of life.
Yeah.
It is what God uses to make us better, change us, right? Make us fit for the kingdom. Because you're thinking you're the greatest thing that happened to that person, and you're thinking you're perfect, but the person is seeing things that they don't like, right? And they're pointing it out, but the other person is being defensive. So, it will come. There will be things that you will notice. But like he said, you go to God first and ask God to help you.
Help you.
Right?
First.
Help you.
Yeah.
And if we each do that, God is going to help us and we begin to become better, right? The other person begins to become better. So I feel like as we began to grow toward God, we began to grow closer, even more closer to each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so those were the things that were inherent in me, right? But there were other things that were not harmful. But you find that, when you get married, you find that you discover all of a sudden, she's not really like me. He is not like me.
That's right.
She has her likes, I have my likes, and they may not always converge, right? For example, I used to be given to sarcasm and making fun of her. She really didn't like it. And so,
I said, no.
With time, after we had a few clashes, I realized, okay, my wife isn't really into that, right? So I began to backpedal. Now, here, let me confess, I didn't stop completely because God also helped her to tolerate my, fun and jokes, and so I think we found some kind of balance.
Yeah,
right?
We found balance.
Yeah. And so those conflicts or disagreements, they're not necessarily a bad thing unless it starts getting vile and it helps you to understand your spouse better. It helps you know, okay, she doesn't like these kind of things, I better stay away from this. He doesn't like this kind of thing, I better stay away from that.
That's right. And then I would just add to stop trying to change each other, right? And just kind of, let God work on you.
Exactly.
And God will be working on that other person.
Exactly. Because remember, God is the one that brought you together.
That's right.
And it's the same God that will work what he has to work in her as much as in you, right? Nobody is perfect, right? Single guys, you're looking for a perfect woman. Single ladies, you're looking for a perfect man. There is none.
That's
the
right.
day you marry Mr. Perfect, he becomes imperfect, right?
Imperfect.
Okay. Right. So anyway, time is flying.
So let's talk about some of the things that then helped us. Okay. What do you think the role? I find family can play a role, right? So that's why I tell people it's important that you go in when you are marrying. Don't force your way into a family. Okay. It's important that you go into a place where you're loved, you're accepted, because they can help, they can support. They can also sometimes destroy, but if they are harnessed properly, they can help, right? And support. Also be in a local church, a good church. Fellowship where you can fellowship together, have a community of other believers who can support
and
you.
People who can speak into your life.
Can speak into your life.
Mature people. We had a lot of them. We have a lot of them in our lives, right? You can't do it alone. You need that community of believers, and and a time will come where others will also need you.
That's right.
So what you learn from others and apply in your marriage, you can also apply in yours. I mean, we can go on and on and on. We need to do this more often.
That's right.
Because we've not even touched the tip of the iceberg. At
all. And I like to mention also educating yourself. Because men and women are so different.
Yeah.
A lot of the challenges people face is not really that they are bad or anything. It's just those underlying basic differences between men and women, just the way that God made them. So educating yourself, going for marriage seminars, reading great books, right? And relating with people whose marriages are good will help you strengthen your marriage. So overall, I just want to say marriage is a beautiful thing.
Oh, you almost forgot. Prayer.
And prayer. Yes.
On your own and together. Right? It does wonders. It does miracles, I tell you. But there's one more thing I want to say before we close.
Yes, before you talk about prayer, if you remember with prayer, you know, sometimes when we're newly married, right? Let's say we're angry, we're quarreling, and then it's my turn to pray. Right? And, you know, you're frowning, but then you have to pray. And by the time you're done praying, right? The problem is solved. So absolutely, as a couple, start praying. Like if you guys are not doing that right now, start praying. Yes.
So very quickly, I want to say to the married people, you know how they say marriage is 50-50, you know, you got to be 50-50. Listen, marriage is not a transaction. Marriage is not a contract where, oh, you bring 50%, I bring 50%. Because what that does is you will only respond to your spouse the way they respond to you. No. Marriage is a covenant.
That's right.
Do you know, as Christians, we have a covenant with God? He died for us. When we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. There was no 50-50 between us and God. I mean, it's like God brought everything on the table and we only brought our wretched selves. And the Bible says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and died for her. It wasn't a 50-50 arrangement. Whatever the spouse can bring, let the spouse bring to the best of his or her ability and live together. Marriage is not a contract. It's not a transaction.
That's right.
It's a covenant between two people. Love your wives. Love your husbands.
Yeah. You can do it. And we just want to say thank you for joining us today. We really value it. Don't forget to subscribe. Put your questions in that chat. We want to come back and answer those questions. All right. We're praying for you. We want your marriage to be strong. We're praying for you that you will find the right person. For those of you who are single. And just as we wrap up, remember that I host a marriage mentorship class. It's going to kick off again this September. We went on a break in the summer and it is online. It's completely free. We come together and we learn things that help us build strong relationships, that help us build strong marriages. So I invite you to follow the prompts you see on the screen and register to be part of the class. Is there anything else that's your...
Well, don't forget to put your questions in the chat and don't forget the gifts. Subscribe and like.
Yes. Okay. And we'll see you next week. So it's goodbye from Single and Married with Ezzy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.